It's April 1st, 2015. And so the various methods of torturing me and trying to get me to shut up about people who the government was using to work for them, or who they were possibly torturing to force them to work for them, and do some of the things they did to me. They were basically forcing me into, periodically, repeatedly putting me into mental wards. And I wasn't just getting tortured and stuff, and for example, it wasn't just like quote-unquote psychologists asking me questions. That was hardly ever the case. It was mostly FBI, U.S. Marshals, and Secret Service when I was younger. And they would come in, do a whole interrogation of me, ask a bunch of questions, and wanted to know how much I remembered, which names I remembered of individuals who had committed crimes against me that they worked for and knew. They wanted to figure out exactly how much I knew and how much information I could pass on if I were released and if I were making reports against them. So they were periodically basically using mental wards at places for extracting all kinds of information out of me to figure out how much knowledge I had retained and I could potentially use against them. And then they were using that to structure how they wanted to call me crazy, and how sometimes they were then torturing me and electrocuting me and drugging me to force me to forget some of those things, because they didn't want me to remember and they didn't want me to talk about a lot of the things that they did. And if they didn't confuse something well enough, sometimes they were making suggestions, such as they would start using suggestive ideas to try to retrain my memory off of what was actually true and have me think that it was something else instead. Such as I would say, well, and then the person who raped me was wearing a red shirt, and that was the shirt that so-and-so was wearing. And they would say, well, no one was wearing red. You must mean like hot pink or something. You mean hot pink because it was a woman? And you mean hot pink, right? And then they would say, use other ideas to suggest that it was hot pink. The color was hot pink, not red. They were constantly like, that's a really small thing, but they also used names of different individuals. Like some guy named Mike would not be Mike Magnotti, for example. It would be Mike or Mike Middleton. It'd be a different Mike. Or sometimes later, when they realized I was picking up on their names and how they addressed each other, they were sometimes calling each other by different names than what their names really were if I didn't know the people well enough. And that was all to try to keep me from remembering and reporting individuals who were connected to these government crimes against me. And other things, for example, would be like Robin Bechtold. When I was in high school or right out of high school, he knew about a rock climbing situation where the government pretty much looked to me like they were trying to kill me. And he kept trying to say it was a shorter woman that was on the rock climbing trip with me. And you know, how would he know, and why would he be trying to make inferences into who I was rock climbing with? Because he was attempting to say that it was on a certain day that it was Joy Sterling, and we did do rock climbing with her because they did some cover-up stuff between the Sterlings and the Flames. But the woman who was directly involved on the specific day that they were looked to me like they were trying to have me fall to my death was Valerie Plame. And Valerie Plame, at that time back then, in the early 1990s, she hadn't been publicly outed to a bunch of people. I mean, on a widespread level, at least to my knowledge, she wasn't outed like that at that time as a CIA agent. And now everyone knows that Valerie Plame and the Flames were CIA and have been CIA for a long time. But back then, people didn't know that. And so here's Robin Bechtold, another government employee, or a kid of a government employee, and government employee himself, who was attempting to retrain my memory and suggesting that it was a shorter woman and a different woman altogether, because he didn't want me to remember that the woman's name was Valerie and that her last name was Plain. Because if I remembered that, then I was identifying an officer or whatever of the CIA, and as participating in attempting to look to me like they were trying to kill me. So and also just the idea of where she was located and who she was associating with, all of that would give individuals ideas of what was things that were going on. So some of the things that some of the reasons I kept getting thrown into mental wards and being told to shut up and queried and interrogated on a bunch of different things and have people saying that I'm nuts when I wasn't. Some of it had to do with things like that. Like they didn't want me talking about their secret officers and agents and having other people find out what they really did for a living. However, I was never breaching any kind of security protocol or anything, because all they did is they picked me up and repeatedly, constantly were gang raping me, practicing mind control techniques against me. Torturing me to do it. And their quote-unquote mind control practices are not painless. They justify what they do, and they say, oh, it works. Well, yeah, sure, it works. A lot of things work. If you're mean to a dog long enough, for example, you might end up getting a dog out of that is fearful and mean. I mean, people have reactions to different things that happen to them. And what the United States was doing is they were repeatedly torturing me. I was getting electrocuted. On a constant basis. And they did some of that electrocution of me inside FBI offices. And another thing that they did to justify and make it look like what they were doing wasn't so bad is before they were doing it in offices and videotaping me to justify what they did, they were first forcing me to make an appearance of not have any reaction to extreme pain. And if I displayed by screaming or any kind of uncomfortable movement or facial distortion or crying or anything like that, if I displayed any kind of fear or pain, then they were torturing me even worse, and sometimes immediately raping me, telling me sometimes after torturing me horrendously, they put a gun to my head and say, we'll kill you one of these times. So you better start making it look like this doesn't hurt at all. So let's see you get through this, without reacting at all. And if you do, then we'll stop doing this. It'll be over faster. It'll be easier on you. So basically, they were forcing me to not display any kind of pain. And it wasn't that I didn't feel pain, and that it wasn't extremely horrendous torture. It was that they were forcing me to put on an act to the point of passing out, because they wanted to justify what they did as worthwhile. And a lot of the mind control techniques that they used, all of it involved torture. And then what they were doing in addition to that is, in addition to torturing me and trying to force me to look like it didn't hurt at all and like it was painless. And so, yes, the United States should continue to receive funding for what they did and credit for what they did, and everybody can get a free pass from it. They were, in addition to doing that, a lot of the mind control techniques, almost everything that they were using against me was for my harm in the future. It was all to make it look like I was consenting to being raped. So then they were trying to basically using the same techniques to force me to look like I was consenting to sex when I wasn't, when I was actually being raped. and I had to make it look like I was agreeing to it and going along with it and liked it even. And they were forcing me to learn techniques that they wanted to use for me to kill myself and have it look like an accident. So I'm going to figure out a quick now. This is getting on going on 11 minutes.